Don't sit there wishing and waiting, you know. God furnishes fish, but we have to furnish bait.
As a professional salesperson, one who seeks out services and develops your own clientele, your primary tool of the trade is the telephone. In the area of prospecting, it's the most effective method of contacting a large number of people in a short time in a very personal way. However, many salespeople reject this use of the telephone. They would rather talk to a stranger on the lot or showroom floor than call that same prospect on the phone. That's understandable. After all, since the prospect has come to the dealership, you can safely assume he's in the market for a car or truck. However, by carefully selecting your prospect sources, you can increase your odds of contacting by phone those people who are likely to be in the market in the near future. For example, using the dealership's owner list or your own customer file, you can look for owners of 3 to 4-year-old vehicles or service customers who are in for extensive repairs or body work. Another reason salespeople don't prospect by telephone is that it's more difficult to read and pick up buying signals when you just hear a voice. The solution, then, is to be ready for anything the prospect might say or do. And this means having a telephone format or game plan in mind, not a canned script, but a way of working the call so that you are prepared for responses from the prospect. Having a format helps you keep the conversation moving smoothly. By knowing ahead of time what you're going to say, you're less likely to stumble or hesitate. A format helps build your confidence on the phone because you're in control. You always know where the conversation's going because you're leading it. There are as many different formats as there are salespeople who use them. The best ones, however, have a common objective: to make an appointment with the prospect to visit the dealership. Let's listen to some expert advice from Joe McGuire, a widely known automotive sales trainer. Listen closely to Joe's format and think about how you can adapt it to fit your own selling style.
Why would you think it's so important to have a format for a phone call? Why would you think it's so important? Pardon?
So it flows.
It flows?
Be prepared.
Be prepared for anything to happen? What else? You gave whose confidence? Yours, right? If you pick up that phone and that customer says something, you start stuttering, what happens to your confidence? Down the tube, right or wrong. When you've got someplace to go, you've got something to say. So it builds in you a tremendous amount of confidence that nobody can ever embarrass you on the phone, correct? You've got something to say. All right, now, it goes like this. The phone rings, the customer picks it up, and I hear this voice, hello. Well, my name is Joe McGuire. I work at ABC Chevrolet over on 12th Street, right across the bank. I'd like to talk to Mr. Johnson. This is Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, the reason I call is to invite you down to test drive a great new Chevy. Would today or tomorrow be best for you? Now, all the things he's going to say, right? All the things he can say, tell me, what do you think are some of the things he could say?
Not interested.
Not interested.
No money.
No money.
I don't need a new car.
Don't need a new car.
Can't afford it.
Can't afford it. What else?
A new one already.
Just bought a new one. What else?
Don't have the time.
Don't have the time. What else? I thought I'll trouble my Chevrolet. Service is terrible. All these things. Okay, so now, when I said to him, how about coming down to test drive the car? Would today or tomorrow be best for you? That's the answers I'm going to get from him, right or wrong. Okay, so let's go back again. Hello, my name is Joe McGuire. I work at ABC Chevrolet on 12th Street, right across from the bank. May I speak to Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson, the reason I call is to invite you down to test drive a great new Chevrolet. Would today or tomorrow be best for you? Okay, now, I get one of these answers. There are 9 responses that I want you to get familiar with. And we'll write them all out. And these 9 responses are they're not answers in terms of, captive answers. In other words, I doubt if you'll ever get to do all 9 of them in a row. But one of these is going to respond to something the customer says. For example, think now in terms of all the things we said. The first, number 1, is, why do you say that, sir? Now, if the customer says to all of the nitty things, like a customer says, we don't need a car. Oh, why do you say that, sir? Make them talk to you, right? How about coming down and test drive a car? No. Would you mind telling me why? Other things like, we're not interested. Oh, why is that, sir? When you agree with all those nitty things, wouldn't the question, some version of why do you say that, make the man talk to you, right or wrong? Number 2 is, what kind of a car do you drive now? Number 3, what year is it? You got to ask him that, because people always say, just bought a new car when it says 1982, right? Why does it say new? Because it's new to them. Number 4, is that the only car in the family? It's vital to find out what other cars they've got in the family, and or trucks. If I find out they've also got a truck or trucks, for the rest of the conversation, I'm going to include trucks when I talk to them, right? Not just newer used cars, but also going to talk about trucks if they own a truck. Now, those first four are the fact-finding questions. They're fact-finding questions. Now, number 5 and 6 are trolling questions. Number 5, you know, I'll bet you folks have at least been talking about a newer used car lately, haven't you? Number 6, suppose you to see a car that you really like, same time fits your budget. At least you have to consider it, wouldn't you? Now, you may or may not get to do those first 6, but number 7 and 8 you got to do. Number 7, sir, since you've been so nice, I'd like to ask you a question, even if he hasn't been nice. Since you've been so nice, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you have any friends, neighbors, or relatives who have been talking about a newer used car lately? You'd be surprised. 1 out of 10 times, just about 1 out of 10 on average, that the guy will give you the name and address of somebody who's interested in buying a car. Now, if he gives it to you off the top of his head like that, what does that tell you? What time reference was he talking to that customer? Had to be within the last couple of days, right? Now, and still in that number 7, we come back with, should you send me someone that buys a car for me, there's always a surprise gift dinner for you. That's terrific, isn't it, sir? Now, quite often the customer will say, what's the gift? Then you have to say, well, it wouldn't be a surprise. And he usually laughs, right? Okay, now number 8. Number 8 probably surprises me more than anything else in this phone call. It's the way people respond to it. Number 8, you know, you write this down. Do you have a pencil handy? Now, it's surprising how 85% of the people go and get a pencil. Now, you say, well, Joe, if they're not interested, why would you want them to go get a pencil? Because it's called seeding, right? S-E-E-D-I-N-G. That when you get somebody to write down your name, your address, the name of the dealership, and the phone number, haven't you created a business card in any house you do that in? How about it? You've created a business card. And it's surprising how that'll come back. You won't be doing this for very long when a guy comes in and asks for you who you never saw before in your life. And you say, I'm Joe McGuire, and he says, well, I'm Charlie Johnson. Remember you spoke to me on the phone 2 weeks ago? Hell, I don't remember from a hole in the wall, but I said, Mr. Johnson, good to see you, sir. What can we sell you tonight? See, he remembered I didn't because he wrote my name down. Okay, now, when you finish with this number 8, when he says, yes, I've got a pencil or don't have a pencil, you got to be ready for something else. If he says, I don't have a pencil, now write this down in parentheses so you don't say this when you don't mean to, right? Say, sir, would you get one for me, please? And the guy, if he got a pencil. Okay, now, you got to say it slowly. You got to say it slowly. I would say, my name is Joe McGuire. Now, spell your last name, even if it's Smith, because by spelling it, you sort of force him to write it down, right? Or you got a better chance of writing it down. Say, my name is Joe McGuire. It's M-C-G-U-I-R-E. Okay, and my telephone number, and do it slow, 979-2943. And the name of the dealership, do it slow. Okay, now, no matter how good or bad the telephone call has gone, you always want to try to wind up on a happy note, right? So, number 9, it certainly has been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you. Now, there's 2 possibilities here, right? I said, it certainly has been a pleasure talking, and I look forward to seeing you. Possibility A, where you made an appointment on Wednesday at 10, right? Or possibility 2, I look forward to seeing you in the near future. Okay, one of those 2 possibilities. Now, one of the key things about being a successful telephone man is not just the first call. When you make an appointment, some of you have had this experience. You've made several appointments, right? And nobody showed up, or 1 guy out of 5 showed up. How about it? Because one of the key things is the reconfirmation or reaffirmation of the appointment. If I make 3 appointments today for tomorrow, I'm going to call all 3 people tonight, right? And remind them of that, not resell the appointment, remind them. Mr. Johnson, it's Joe McGuire again. I talked this morning about coming in tomorrow. I want to make sure I'm here, so it was at 8 or 9 you're coming in, or 9 or 10 or whatever. He goes, well, I'll be there at 10 o'clock. Now, if he reaffirms, don't you have a 90% chance of seeing that man, right or wrong? So, but now, people say to me, well, Joe, people are going to back out if you give them a chance. If they're going to back out over the phone, what were the chances of coming in anyhow? Slim and none. When you said he had no chance, they had no intention of coming in. So, what happens here is if you reconfirm 5 appointments, you'll get, say 5 people reconfirm, you'll get to see at least 4 of them. You know, 4 to 5. Certainly no less than 3. If you don't reconfirm, you're not going to see any of them. Hasn't that been your experience? So you got to reconfirm. Okay, there's the basic phone call.
Let's check our panel of retail consultants on the subject of prospecting. Joe McGuire sure makes telephone prospecting look easy. Now, how about it, Jackie?
Joe McGuire undoubtedly is one of the finest. Joe, I'm sure, as he's expressed maybe to Clint and text, he writes out his message completely, commits it up here to memory, but then he still follows his write-out or his guidelines when he makes that call. And he's very effective. But practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. He may have to edit one word, change one technique in the telephone conversation. And that's, to me, that's the easiest way to contact a prospect is through that telephone. If you're making that call to the consumer, I never use, "I'd like to sell you a car." Mr. Johnson, my name is Jackie Cooper. I'm with ABC Chevrolet. I'd certainly appreciate the opportunity to make you a proposal when you consider purchasing your next car, and this would be on a cold call. Most people are more than willing to discuss, any type proposal with you. I'd like to earn your business, and I'd appreciate it very much if I could have the opportunity to have you evaluate one of the new Chevrolets. I'd like to bring it to your home, to your business, at your convenience, have you evaluate the car. So when you make that phone call, I realize from experience the audience that's viewing this material, they may not have been successful, but if you continue on, those sales will start coming, especially if you'll just establish an appointment. I don't try to get into price. I don't try to close the deal over the phone. I find that phone, until I see a hand run out of the end of that phone and sign a contract, I don't try to sell over a phone.
You just get the door ajar.
That's all. I
That's all.
just want the door open and establish a contact, comfortable, pleasing, at his convenience. Now, we'll be back if he says no.
Overall, how important is prospecting?
To me, that prospect is my earnings. So I look at it as far as an earnings for Jack Cooper. Not in the sense that I'm going to take anything that I'm not entitled to. It's where I would justify, again, earning his money by exposing the benefits. I think everybody is a prospect, either developed or undeveloped, but everybody's a prospect. How about it, Tex?
Well, I wish we could take the word prospecting out of our vocabulary. The word prospecting means work. And unfortunately, too many people, not turned on by work. But if we could just talk about traffic development, I think this is much more important. What happened in 79, 80, and 81? About 4,000 American automobile dealers went broke. Why? Traffic dried up. And they had salesmen didn't know how to prospect or how to develop traffic. As an end result, what happened to our business? See, I firmly believe there's nothing wrong with any economy or any situation that old-fashioned salesmanship will not cure. And therefore, prospecting is a must. It's a discipline. I don't like to jog, but I do every day. And the reason for it is that's my discipline. And I'll tell you, as a salesman, I learned how to prospect before I ever learned how to sell. I got to be honest with you. I learned how to prospect. Because if I didn't have somebody to talk to, I could be the best salesman in the world, And, of course, this is back in the days when you didn't have too much floor traffic. And I'd hate to tell you how many years ago that's been. But I can tell you right now that any salesman that will discipline themselves every day to find one buyer on their own, they'll never be without business. I think every salesman should start each day saying, I don't hope to sell a car. I'm not going to say I might sell a car. I wish I could sell a car. Each day I want that goal to be today I can, I will, and I must sell a car. And start that day out one car at a time. Don't try to go out like bananas and get them in bunches. They don't come that way unless you're a fleet operator. But work on one-on-one. And I'm very goal-oriented, and I try to stress this to new salespeople coming into the industry. Set you a goal, and then discipline yourself to reach that goal. It includes the prospecting, naturally.
May I be a little more specific?
Please, Clint.
I think that goal setting is the basis of prospecting.
Let's stop our panel discussion and focus for a moment on Clint's idea about goal setting as the basis for prospecting. Several years ago, Clint presented a method you can use to help determine how many prospects you need to meet your income requirements. Let's take a look.
How much money would you like to earn in this dealership next month?
I'd like to earn $3,000 to $4,000.
Okay. Is $3,000 to $4,000 realistic?
It can be if I
All right. I'll take you 3,000. All right. Next, what is your average commission per unit sold?
About 210.
About 210. Let's round it off because it's easier figuring. If we divide 200 into 3,000, we come up with 15. What does that 15 represent?
Number of units I have to sell.
Number of units you must sell. Okay. What is your closing ratio?
About 1 in 6.
About 1 in 6. 1 in 6. If that be the case, then you've got to have 6 prospects to make 1 sale, and you have to make 15 sales. How many prospects you got to have?
90.
Got to have 90. Okay. In your dealership, how many ups or walk-ins or prospects do you talk to in a given day?
On a short day,
Average.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. All right. To make sure we're going to make the $3,000, let's say it's 3, okay, because that's national average. And we got, what, 25 work days next month? And 3 times 25 is what?
75.
75. That tells us then that you're going to have only 75 prospects coming in the door that you're going to talk to. Based on your closing ratio and the amount of money you want to make, you're going to come up a little bit light, aren't you? Just how light?
15.
You got to have 15 prospects. Okay? Now, for you, it's 15 prospects. For her, it might be 20 prospects. For him, it might be only 7 prospects. But based on what you want to earn, this is what you've got to do on your own, so this establishes your prospecting program.
Now, back to our panel. Where do you find prospects?
Oh, you know, like I say, I like to talk to people face to face. Now, Ernie mentioned it, and I'll mention it. I think that a salesperson should get approximately half of their sales away from the dealership. It's very easy to do because you're nice to people. I recommend that a salesperson go out and call on 5 small businesses a day until they have 100 accounts they've called on. It takes them about 30 days. Now, when they first do that, they'll only sell 1 or 2 vehicles. And they'll say, well, I don't know whether it's worth it. But the important thing is you go back to those same 100 accounts. Next month, you'll pick up 2 or 3. The next month, you call on the same 100 accounts. Within 6 months, you'll be selling 10 or 12 units away from the dealership. Because you're calling on the same people every month, and you become friends, and it's not cold prospecting anymore. Small businesses, 5 to 15 employees.
See, I call that nesting. You keep going back to the nest until everybody in that business knows that you're in the automobile business. I know of a salesman that I have a great admiration for that's in the Chevrolet family that has the most unique way, and this man never takes a floor up at all. Every morning, he starts out, he pulls into a grocery store or a mini market or someplace like this, and he spots a particular car he'd like to trade for. He waits till the people comes out, and he gives them his card and introduces himself, and he says, I was admiring your car. Do you realize I can put you in a new model Chevrolet today for about the same monthly payment you're making now? That's giving that buyer hope for gain. Now, someone might say, well, maybe they didn't finance. Well, maybe a frog doesn't have wings. But on the other hand, when most people do finance, what you're doing, you're playing the odds in your favor.
One of the greatest ways to prospect is through owner follow-up. If a person got that going real well, after a few years, he could forget about any other kind of prospecting. Plus the fact you're doing 2 things at one time. You're following your owners, you're going to get their repeat business, you're going to get their referrals, and you're also providing customer satisfaction.
Good. In setting up a system of prospecting, Jackie, what about the service department? How can you use them?
Jack, I was trained as a young salesperson that I was to be at the dealership every morning at 6 in the summer, at 7 in the winter. That's when our service department opened. My sales manager, and I was a young fellow at that time, he said, Jackie, the dealership opens when the service door opens. So I was to be there. Now, if there's any time that you can really involve a prospect in negotiating or selling, is when he's in the service department, especially if he has something that's giving him a problem or he's going to have to spend some money for repairs. The body shop. I don't know of a better time to talk to a man about trading his car than when it's wrecked or it's in the body shop. One of the national insurance companies validated that over 70% of the people that they get a new serial number to go on their insurance policy are people who have just received an insurance loss payable check. In other words, what they're saying is once they send that check for those repairs, within a period of 90 days, they change the serial number on their insurance policy. So what does that tell us they're doing? They're trading that car once it's been wrecked. The key point that should be exposed here, they don't trade it with the dealer they bought it from if they've wrecked it and took it to that service department or that body shop. They take it somewhere else. So you best get him while he's in that body shop. That service department, that body shop, I don't think there's any way a salesperson could miss at least 10 sales a month, minimum, if he'll just work that service department and that body shop. The repair orders on the windshield usually, there's a name, address, phone number, and the repairs that's necessary. It's an ideal way to get a prospect every day, the service department and the body shop.
And never leave the dealership.
Never leave the dealership.
Jackie, can you discuss and explain orphan owners to us and how they can be used as prospects?
Experience has shown, and I think Clint would be more qualified to comment on this, and I'd ask him to do it after I give a little explanation on orphan owners. So many salespeople come into business and just try it. They don't come in and treat it as a profession. Therefore, we have a lot of people coming in a dealership, selling a few cars, and leaving. Well, those owners who made that purchase from that Chevrolet dealership, they're orphans. Let me have that bill of sale book. Give me a list of the salespeople that is currently selling in that store. Now let me have the names of those salespeople who are no longer there and the names of the people they sold cars to. I find that they're so impressed when I call, and I'll use my word track if I may. Mr. Smith, my name is Jackie Cooper. I'm with ABC Chevrolet. I know you purchased your car from Sam Jones, who is no longer with our agency. And I've asked the sales manager if I could have his permission to be responsible for your satisfaction, which he has granted that to me. And I'd just like to introduce myself by telephone. You'll receive in the mail a little PR package about Jackie Cooper. And I'd like very much to come by and personally say hello and get to know you so I can take care of any needs that you might have. And when would be convenient for us to get together? Now, I use the word get together. I don't ask for an appointment. Again, it's a connotation of a term. Most people who have appointments is with doctors, lawyers, and IRS. Nobody wants an appointment, so I want to get together. Clint, you might comment a little further on that, if you would.
Well, we know that 82% of the people who are driving cars and trucks today do not know the name of the person that sold them that vehicle because the person forgot them. Mm-hmm. When they took delivery of the vehicle, they said goodbye, not hello. So if you call a 4-year owner, that's today's market, if you contact them on the phone, you won't have any competition on 8 out of 10 phone calls you make because nobody's following those people.
Do you use direct mail?
Direct mail is good as a door opener. But if it didn't follow it up, it's like pep without purpose. It's piffle. Mm. And I hope that message gets over. Yeah. I've been in dealerships where to get into the sales meeting, you had to have 20 postcards. I'd written 1,000 not to have to attend the meeting, you know. But the thing about this, to me, when you're using mail, unless it's directed and it's mailed with a purpose and followed up, you're not playing good odds.
I took an 8x10 black and white picture of Jackie Cooper, and I had that 8x10 duplicated by the thousands. I would mail that picture along with 6 letters from customers who had purchased cars from me. Now, one letter may state he bought from me because he just liked Jack Cooper. One may have been the allowance. One might have been the difference. One might have been payment. One could have been the interest rates. One could have been the fact I got him the car that he wanted. I'd take those 6 letters, attach them to that picture, and then I would mail that. Now, right initially, that would think that's a lot of expense. It's too expensive not to do it. But one thing for certain, if that prospect walks on that showroom floor with your 8x10 picture in his hand, you don't have any trouble with anybody skating you, I promise you. Mm-hmm. It will bring the prospects in. They never forget you. A consumer, I've had them tell me, I've never had a salesman in all my life send me an 8x10 picture. Why did you do that? I said, I wanted you to know who's interested in you. Now, that gives me the contact. It's a positive. Now, with the ladies, I would be cautious using that 8x10 picture, especially to mail it out to the prospect. So I would add that, especially for the ladies' point of view.
Did you put on a wig when you had the picture?
Had my rug on, Clint. Yeah. I make a list of all people that I do business with. Now, they're on a monthly mailer. Anyone that I know goes on that list. If I meet someone new, that goes on my prospect list. Now, it may be undeveloped, but it is a prospect. And by continually making that monthly mailer, I ensure myself of income. Now, the things we're talking about, for those in the audience that may have some question, well, what type earnings are you looking at? You control it, not the floor traffic. You control it. Because we get back what we put out. It's an old cliche, but I don't think you reap what you sow as much as you're sowing what you're reaping what you've already sown. Let me put it that way. If the guy expects to sell, it'll be because he's done something that he knows is going to produce business. And Clint, I believe your statistic was 1 out of 6 is a closing ratio.
Tex, any further comments or summary that you can give us?
Yeah, in fact, I think it kind of summarized this area of prospecting is, first of all, you got to target your efforts. That's what I was mentioning. Use the rifle approach. Don't use the shotgun approach of just going out with scatter load and throwing it to the miss. Zero in where the market potential is, where the prospects are. I think we've all come around to this conclusion in this discussion that we've had here that if we contact our new owners, not only periodically but also regularly, and that when we're not face-to-face with a customer, that's unapplied selling time unless you're doing something to develop traffic. And in summary, if you want to harvest, you better plant. If you plant the seed, you'll get a harvest. But don't depend solely on walk-in traffic. Develop 50% of your traffic. And as Clint and Jackie have brought out, prospect in a comfortable way. Don't do something that you dislike. Don't do something that you have a fear of, but do something. Do something. Don't sit there wishing and waiting. You know, God furnishes fish, but we have to furnish bait.
Yeah.
So going out and bait the hook and get started.
If I could make one final comment
Yes, sir.
in the area of prospecting, I have for a number of years recorded my conversation when I was making calls. And reluctantly I say this, no wonder they didn't come to see me. I think you have to sometimes analyze, what did I say? Where did the conversation go wrong? What did I miss? Now that would be definitely with understanding that this conversation that you're recording is for your clarification, edification, you know, for me only. And I'd sit and listen, and I could see where I'd make my mistakes. Again, that's when the experience becomes an education because I've taken the time to analyze it. I think one of the best-known coaches in America, he uses a little statement. He says that, and this relates to selling, it's not the will to win, it's the will to prepare to win. So by recording that conversation, I'm preparing a little better next time when I make a call and achieve perfect practice, not just practice. Because when you practice, you can get better at doing it wrong.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackie, Tex, Clint. Our experts have shared with you some of their best ideas, methods, and techniques for successful prospecting. How to use the telephone, your most versatile prospecting tool. How to set prospecting goals to increase your income. How to meet prospects face-to-face off the showroom floor. New car and truck prospects are literally everywhere you go. Plus, there are prospects in your own backyard, your present owners, in your service department, your body shop, and orphan owners in your dealership's owner files. Additionally, be sure to check with your sales manager for lists providing names of owners at or near their original car loan payoff. A great source for finding past customers ready to buy soon, if not now. We've also covered ways to use direct mail effectively. You know, there are many excellent books available just on direct mail that can tell you how to target your mailings to the audience you want, how to personalize your message, make it short, concise, appealing. Again, ask your sales manager for ideas to help you make the most of this important prospecting tool. How do you make prospecting pay off for you? To borrow a quote from Jackie Cooper, it's not the will to win, it's the will to prepare to win. Prospecting takes preparation and perspiration, but the professional knows the payoff is worth it.
As important as anything is that 82% of the people who are driving vehicles today do not know the name of the person that sold them that vehicle because they're not following them.
As someone once said, the only things that don't change are death and taxes. Everything else does. Change is a part of life, and in our business, a subtle yet important change is owner loyalty. Time was that an owner identified with a particular make and couldn't be budged from it. Today, customers are more independent. They're shopping more, looking at other makes and models.
I visited 3, basically. It was a Ford dealership, a Chevy dealership, and a Buick dealership.
Before I bought my car, I was looking around for about a good 2 months, checking things out, stopping here, stopping there.
We visited approximately 12 to 16 dealerships, all locally, probably within a 15 to 20 mile radius of our home.
What this means is that buyers are open to change and that you have a better opportunity than perhaps ever before to sell Chevrolets to people who would never consider them before. In other words, your ticket to increased sales and earnings is selling competitive make owners. Conquest selling. An opportunity for you to make some plus sales and extra commissions. Now, let's see how you start gearing up to sell to competitive car and truck owners. The first step is certainly to become familiar with what your competition is offering.
I drive a Rampage.
A Scrambler.
A Sundowner.
I'm driving a Quantum.
A Cressida.
Stanza.
A Sentra.
A Pulsar.
A Maxima.
What is a Maxima? Do you know? Is it a full-size car? Mid-size? Compact? What? How much does it sell for? What kind of equipment does it have? You should know, because the kind of car or truck the prospect is driving now and the equipment it has on it tells you a lot about his or her personal needs and tastes. So it will help if you know what a Maxima is. A Rampage, a Scrambler, a Sundowner, a Quantum, a Cressida, a Pulsar, a Sentra, or a Stanza. You may now be asking, how do I find out what the competition has to offer? Well, there are several good ways to find out. From your comparison video discs, from your printed comparison materials throughout the year, and your live comparison rallies, and from the competitive product literature that you can pick up at any competitive dealership. While you're there, look at those competitive cars. Talk to competitive salespeople. Talk to friends who drive competitive vehicles. Find out what they like about them and what they don't like. Remember that in competitive selling, you're ordinarily not selling against a current model competitive car, but one that is 4 or 5 years old, the one the owner is driving. That's the one you'll be comparing with a brand new Chevrolet. Now let's assume that you've done your homework. You're well versed in competitive products and you're ready to do some conquest selling. What now? How do you start? Start prospecting, of course. Remember that 1 out of every 4 import owners is ready to consider a change, and 1 out of every 2 Ford owners changed makes the last time they traded. Lists of competitive make car and truck owners in all trading areas are reported nationally, area by area, by the R.L. Polk Company in Detroit, and are available to Chevrolet dealerships through their local Chevrolet Zone office. Ask your sales manager if your dealer subscribes to these lists and if they could be made available to you. If so, you'll find them to be a very productive source of competitive make owners to contact by phone or by mail. How productive? Let's ask an expert. Clint, what are some of your thoughts on competitive make owner prospecting?
Jack, let me ask you a question. Why does a salesperson go to work each day? The only obvious answer is to earn income. So competitive prospecting is a source of income for salespeople. And I think secondly, as is important as anything, is that 82% of the people who are driving vehicles today do not know the name of the person that sold them that vehicle because they're not following them. So when you start contacting competitive make owners, you have no competition on 8 out of 10 contacts you make. And it is a source of income that you can handle it with. I think competitive prospecting is just a plus for a professional Chevrolet salesperson.
What are some good sources to find competitive make owners?
Well, there are quite a few. You can go out and buy names. I think the smartest thing to do, the easiest way, is go to the classified section of your newspaper each day, and you'll find anywhere from 50 to 300 people that are selling their car or their truck in the newspaper. You see somebody that's trying to sell a Ford pickup, you sell pickups, why don't you call him on the phone and answer his ad? That is the easiest way to do it, because you know you've got a hot prospect right there trying to sell his product, whatever he's driving, car or truck. And if in the event he does sell his product, he's got to have some wheels, so we have the opportunity then to show him our product.
Now, what do you do when you're finally face to face with a competitive make owner? Here's a role play example.
More out back, and I know one of those will fit your style.
Very nice showroom.
Well, I do appreciate you coming in today, Mr. Jones.
Well, you made a good case when you called me.
I just believe when you're making a major purchase, such as an automobile, you owe it to yourself to look around before you make up your mind.
Right, and that's why I'm here. But you know, I'm a Ford owner from way back.
And how long's that been?
Well, about 12 years. I've had 4 of them. When I find a good thing, I stick with it.
Well, you know, we all do. I seem to always buy my shoes at the same place. Only thing is, shoes don't change very much. Cars do. There have been a lot of changes in the last few years.
Really?
Front-wheel drive, fuel injection, onboard computers, steel-belted all-weather tires.
Sure, but all cars have that.
No, not necessarily, Mr. Jones. Let's see, you're driving a 1980 Ford Fairmont station wagon, and you're looking at a new Ford LTD wagon. Isn't that right?
Yes, and that's a good car.
Of course it is, although there are a number of features on the Celebrity wagon that the Ford wagon just doesn't have.
Really? Like what?
Front-wheel drive, for one thing.
Well, what's so good about that?
Well, with front-wheel drive, it gives you greater traction on snow and ice. Also eliminates the driveline hump, gives you more room, and more passenger comfort. Speaking of room, while the Celebrity is more compact on the outside than the LTD, it actually has more room on the inside. For instance, it has standard seating for 6 people instead of only 5 for the LTD.
Clint, what were some of the competitive make selling techniques in the role play we've just seen?
First of all, the salesman we saw in that scene, he was well versed on his product, but at the same time, he was well versed on the competitive product. And I also think what was done brilliantly in the little film we just saw was the salesman did not make a derogatory remark about the customer's product that he was presently driving, because he was sold on it. Now, if you try to downplay that person's car, it got him in there and it can get him out. The only thing you want to do is show him your product and the features that your product has over his. And you'll see that in your film, and it doesn't take much time. The only thing you got to do is maybe pick up 2 or 3 things that your vehicle has that his doesn't have, and give him a reason to buy, and he'll buy your product then. Then once you get him, then he might have some other friends that are driving competition, and if you do a deal for him and give him a good deal, then he might give you some leads on other competitive products of the friends they're driving the same product. So, you know, it's just real smart prospecting. But the young man on the film did a beautiful job. I thought he was excellent.
Would you now summarize the importance and benefits of selling competitive make owners?
Well, I'll go back again. Number 1, it's a source of income. Number 2, you can do it in your spare time. Number 3, you can pick the people you want to work with. For instance, in some areas, the hot product in your community might be Plymouth. Okay, I might prospect with some Plymouth owners. In another city, the hot product might be a used Toyota. If that be the case, then I would prospect with those people. It's just smart sense, and it's professionalism in our business. Plus the fact that I think if salesmen know what they're doing, professional people know what they're doing, this is how you build a base of owners, and the longer you stay in this business, the easier your job should become and the more money you should make. And it all starts with doing some prospecting, and not only prospecting with your product, but prospecting with competitive owners, domestic and imports.
Every salesperson should keep in mind that today's buyers are more open to change than ever before, which means that you have an unusual opportunity to increase your sales and earnings by prospecting and selling to competitive make owners. Use your competitive comparison materials to acquaint yourself with the features of competitive make vehicles. Use your lists of competitive make owners and the suggestions made by our experts to contact these owners. When you contact them, take a low-key, non-pressure approach. Avoid criticizing the owner's present vehicle. Stress the positive advantages of your Chevrolet products rather than dwelling on the negative aspects of the competitive vehicle. Find out what the owner's hot buttons are and sell to them. That's the real secret of selling to owners of competitive make cars and trucks. It's worth the effort. Selling successfully to competitive make owners translates into plus sales for you and money in the bank.
It's like playing a football game. You just don't go down and say, we're going to play this team till we win. There's a time element involved. Therefore, if I establish a goal, I'll put a date on it.
This module on managing time and setting goals may be one of the most important you'll work through, because you'll be taking a major step toward controlling your career and income. But before we get into it, let me make clear what time management is not. Time management is not rushing customers or rushing from one customer to another. It takes time to sell a car or truck, and a customer can't be rushed to make a decision. Time management is not setting up and following a strict step-by-step structure every day. Our days are unpredictable, and we can't follow a set pattern. Time management is not watching the clock and counting the minutes. Rather, time management is watching ourselves and making every minute count. So time management is actually self-management. It's developing a valid, systematic approach to managing that portion of time that is controllable and accepting the portion that is uncontrollable. Using your time effectively is a skill that can be learned, like driving a car. One of the first basic principles of effective time management is organizing your time. If you're organized, if you know where you want to go next, you can make better use of your time and get more accomplished in the same amount of time. That brings up the advantage of planning your time. How do you plan your time? Very simply. You plan by setting goals and objectives. Let's hear from one of our retail consultants on this subject of managing time and setting goals.
We're talking with Jackie Cooper about managing time and setting goals. Jackie, what are a salesperson's high payout activities, those to which he should devote his most time?
Well, I think the most time should be devoted toward prospecting. No matter how much I know about selling techniques, facts that substantiate the claims, I've got to have a prospect. Therefore, I spend most of the time, Jackie Cooper's time, in prospecting. I find by prospecting, if I establish the trust and confidence from the consumer, and that's where I have actually done the prospecting to get him to come to me, or either if I go to him, that by getting the prospect, I'm going to increase my income. Now, I must manage that. I use what is referred to as a personal money guide. I know that if I have 3 prospects a day coming in that dealership and asking for Jackie Cooper, I know out of 3, based on facts, I will sell 2 out of those 3, especially if I have prospected and got them to come to me, or if I have gone to them. You might say I've got them before they go down Automobile Row. That is very profitable. It has to be time organization. Everybody has the same amount of time, but it's how they utilize that time. Therefore, I have to have a guide. I think it's good for a consumer to come in the door as what we refer to as a walk-in traffic. However, I cannot depend on that walk-in traffic to support the type lifestyle I enjoy. I've got to generate that prospect coming to me or again me going to him. I think the most difficult door that you'll ever open as a salesperson is the one that leads outside the dealership. Therefore, time control, or what we refer to as managing your time, is very, very vital in prospecting. Another one is follow-up. If I sell a consumer an automobile, that's my opportunity to earn not only his business, but his relatives, his friends, and by being of service to that consumer, and I mean personal service, letting him know I'm very sincere, that I want him to be totally happy, customer satisfaction. I want him satisfied with Jackie Cooper, with his product, with my dealership, and the only way I'm going to know that he is satisfied is if I continue to follow him up. Another part of my day that produces income is a monthly mailer to every owner. Everyone I sell an automobile to, they receive a monthly mail piece from Jackie Cooper. Now that monthly mail piece may be just a proverb on a card, and that's what I'll use. It's not so much who do you know wants to buy a car, could you give me a referral? It's just a constant reminder that Jackie Cooper is still there, and by doing this, his name and my name are associated together at all times. So I think the activities that a salesperson gets involved in, very critical as far as his success is concerned, and the income is my success.
What specific ways have you found to avoid wasting time?
By having a daily guide. In other words, in the mornings when I start out, I know I'm going to visit my service department first. Now, a lot of salespeople go to work, or you might say go to the dealership at 9 o'clock in the morning. If the dealership service department opens at 7, I want to be there at 7. I don't know of a better opportunity to get a prospect and convert that owner into a new car buyer or a used car buyer than in the service department. Obviously, he's in the service department because he's got a problem. Now, a lot of people won't work that service department. They have fear. That fear is that they're going to run into what we refer to in the automobile business as heat. I want that consumer back there when he's in service. If he's going to spend money to improve or maintain his car, if he's my owner, I want to say hello to him, establish that continuous contact with him every time he's in that dealership. As far as the body shop's concerned, I want to work through that body shop. That body shop is one of the key sources of prospecting. The facts are that that consumer has an accident, that car goes in the body shop. Another one is Orphan Owners. These are money-making ideas and techniques. If a consumer purchases an automobile and that salesperson leaves that dealership, then I want to talk to that particular owner. If that salesperson is no longer there, I want to call him and make contact with him. To me, that's another way to produce profit, but it has to be organized. I use that on a day-to-day basis, and by doing that, my income is insured. I don't have to wait on floor traffic.
Why don't salespeople do the things with their time that they know they should?
I think it's primarily because, Jack, they're not taught properly how to do the things that will produce income, such as time control, managing time, staying away from conversations maybe with other salespeople. Now, no one would intentionally do something to endanger my income. I let that happen to me if I get involved in conversation that does not relate to prospecting or follow-up. Stay around positive-minded people. A negative-minded person, very costly, can cost you thousands of dollars. You know, some people get up in the morning, they think it's a reward for finding something wrong. Well, I want to stay away from that person. I don't need that. And selling to me is attitude, and my attitude must be positive. That's my key to closing ratios. More prospecting, more follow-up, my closing ratio goes up for this reason. That confidence and trust has been established by me constantly contacting that prospect. If I have prospected that customer, in this case the client got him in, closed him, and I follow him up, I know from experience his relatives, his friends, they're going to ask where he made that purchase. Not only where did he purchase, but who did he purchase the car from? And that's my responsibility, not his. The obligation begins when I close the sale. His is over. Mine just began. It's to make sure he's totally satisfied with the purchase he's made, with the service he's receiving.
What's the difference, Jackie, between setting goals and just daydreaming?
Well, a lot of salespeople, they fail to understand that if you set a goal, you must have a list of daily activities that will assure that you will accomplish that goal. Our analogy might be, a goal is what I want to do. A quota is what I've got to do. So I might recommend establish a quota and also establish a goal. The quota is what I've got to do. The goal is what I want to do. But most salespeople do not establish what are the daily activities. Will I visit my service department in the morning? Will I check my body shop? Will I go through my orphan owner list? Will I follow up on those people that I've worked previously? Will I contact those people that maybe over the years that have bought a car from me and I haven't heard from them in 3 or 4 years? As long as those goals are established and supported by daily activities that will ensure the reality of that goal being achieved, that is the importance. Set the goal with plans, daily plans, of what must I do on a day-to-day basis to obtain that goal.
Finally, Jackie, how do time management and goal setting come together?
I think that the goal setting has to be set with a time limit or it loses its effectiveness. It's like playing a football game. You just don't go down and say we're going to play this team till we win. There's a time element involved. Therefore, if I establish a goal, I'll put a date on it. By what day will I achieve X number of sales? If it's in reference to gross that I'm attempting to earn, by what day will I have this amount of gross? That brings in what I refer to as the 3 Ds. You got to have determination, you got to have dedication, but above all, you got to have discipline. Do the things you should do, and do not do the things you shouldn't do. Now, by that particular concept, I can maintain the number of sales and the amount of gross that's feasible.
Remember these 4 simple but important concepts connected to setting objectives. First, good things don't happen by accident. You make them happen by planning your objectives and focusing on them. Second, your objectives should be interlocked from yearly to quarterly to monthly, weekly, and daily. What interlocking your objectives does for you is break down large, possibly overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable objectives. You will find that by working toward your short-range weekly and daily objectives, the larger goals will just naturally fall into place. Third, schedule only those activities that will move you closer to meeting your objectives, particularly prospecting and follow-up activities. Fourth, write down what you plan to do tomorrow at the close of the business day. Some call it a to-do list. That way, when you arrive at work tomorrow, you won't use precious time wondering what to do. You will already have a plan. The salesperson who knows what is planned for the day before he gets to the dealership has a greater chance of success than the one who doesn't. Managing time and setting goals is probably one of the most important activities of the professional salesperson. As Jackie Cooper just said, do the things you should do and do not do the things you shouldn't do. That takes determination, dedication, and above all, discipline. Time is your most valuable asset. Used correctly, it will help you achieve the goals you have set and earn the rewards only this business can deliver.